Welcome to Shootin' the Bull, the official podcast of the championship darts circuit. A casual conversation about the sport of darts, talking about topics of the day from a North American perspective, featuring a cast of characters and contributors from the CDC roster and the world of darts. Now here's your host, Anthony Eugenia.
Yeah, baby. We are back with another episode of Shootin' the Bull, the official podcast of the championship darts circuit. Welcome, everybody. My name is Anthony Eugenia, your host for this evening. We appreciate your patronage. We hope you enjoy the show. You can find everything about the CDC on social media and our website, champdarts.com. You can find us on Facebook, X, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Just search at Champ Darts. We would greatly appreciate you following and liking those pages. This podcast will also be up as an Audible podcast in the next few days, and will be on Apple, Spotify, and all other great podcast platforms. We would also ask that you give us a 5-star review if you like the product, and we certainly hope you do. So we've got a really fun night tonight. We're going to focus on junior and evolution darts, overall youth darts here in North America. We do have a chat room. We want you to be involved in there. We'll take a look at that as the evening progresses. I'll keep a handle on that. If you've got any questions or comments, just be part of the show, be part of the community. The show is a success and a lot of fun because of you guys out there. Okay, so we've got a few things tonight. So before I get to some guests, I'll give you a rundown. We've got a great segment. I got a chance to talk to Darren Barson of the JDC and Erin Quinn of the CDC. We'll be getting to that piece. And then later on in the evening, we've got Dax Munna and Nick Beach of the Throggs Neck Darts Academy and the JDC USA efforts. Joining me overall tonight is my buddy, my man, the CEO of the CDC. Welcome in, Mr. Peter Cetera. There's my boy.
You're asking for 5-star reviews, and I'm the first face you bring on? That all just went to hell.
Well, we won't ask anybody to lie, but if Pete's gonna be a solid 3-star. So if you're gonna go 3, why not just go 5? Go to the distance. So, Pete, we certainly have to touch on. I wanted to talk to you just for a few minutes before we got into the real great episode that we've got in store about youth darts, but kind of ties in today. Let's talk about 2 big stories of the day from a PDC perspective. You've got your PDC official shirt on there. It was the finals of the Premier League that ultimately saw Luke Humphries take on Luke Littler, and I think that's a really good way to frame it. As I was prepping for the show, I mean, these are 2 individuals that definitely epitomize what a successful youth and development program encapsulate, right?
Couldn't have asked for a better final leading into an episode about youth darts, especially when you've got JDC. We're talking about JDC. I mean, JDC minted Luke Littler, right?
Yeah, from a Littler perspective, he's obviously at the moment the crown jewel of what the JDC was able to achieve. Like he's their sterling boy, and I don't mean that in any derogatory way. Like truly, just an absolute meteor that came through their system. And folks, you'll hear Darren talk about that a little bit about why Littler showed up to a lot of people and was so polished. But Humphries is actually more in a way a success story of a full development program of what the PDC built, right? So those 2 companies always working together, but Humphries from a PDC development standpoint, success in the Youth World Championship, took them a while to get there, and then enters the Challenge Tour system, which is built by the PDC to give those players 23 and under more seasoning, chance to get experience. He has success there, and then obviously now moves up to the adult ranks. And Pete, I'll get your take in a second, but for me, setting the table, I'm thinking about Humphries. outside of an obvious, maybe Taylor run at some point, this like 2-year run of Humphreys right now, winning the Premier League today is about as good historically as you can get. I mean, he's ticked off just about every major. He struggled to get past over the finish line, and now once he has, like these 2 years have absolutely been incredible.
Yeah, I mean, no doubt. The year he turned in at the end of 23 and then going into 24, um, legendary. Again, you got to compare him with Taylor, right? Obviously not there in terms of world championships yet. Probably will never get there in terms of world championships, just given the level of competition. But I mean, I hate to say that the Humphreys Littler thing, is getting a little old, long in the tooth. I mean, they produce amazing things, right? But one of the things that I saw, I forget who said it. It was on one of the darts podcasts. Somebody was mentioning that one of the downsides of the Premier League is the fact that we see these matchups that are storied matchups. We used to look forward to, for months at a time. Now we're seeing them week in and week out. We've got the Premier League final is the same as the World Championship final. Like, I'm not. Believe me, I'm not complaining. It's always great to see the best of the best beat each other up, and you couldn't have asked for a better for a better Premier League final. I mean, all the matches were compelling. There was a lot of good action, but again, you come down to Luke, and I guess that's what happens when they're head and shoulders really above where everybody else is.
Yeah, those two guys are clearly, in the league of their own in terms of, and that's no disrespectful. There's another half dozen guys that are at an astronomical place, but those two individuals have just moved past. And I'm sure the things that you're bringing up are, things that the PDC are aware of. It is sort of a catch-22. You've got these two mega stars right now, and you want it to always feel as fresh and exciting as possible, but they're going to be these two juggernauts that are going to clash in so many of these situations.
Yeah. And your point about the system working, the development tour up to the challenge tour, up to the PDC, the actual you want to call them the big boys, that path, it obviously has really refined a lot of players. I mean, hey, Matt Campbell, one of our dear friends, our tour card holders. I mean, how did he initially get his card? He came through Challenge Tour, right? Came through and got it over in Europe. So it definitely does sharpen diamonds. There's no doubt about
it. And I think what makes it more impressive to me, or makes it impressive, period, what Humphreys is doing, that you can have fun with, where has he already put himself in terms of, lists of all-time great players and all that stuff. He's still young. I think, even if he didn't do another thing, just this little slice of history, would go down as one of the more epic moments. And based on the players around him, you've got, he's done this in the last 2 years with a now a soon-to-be icon in Littler, that has arrived on the scene and is not, didn't need to take any time to mature. He's, as we just said, is now him, Luke's and Luke are top. You've still got a Michael Van Gerwen that is still seriously dangerous, and a Price and a Aspinall, so I'm saying in the terms of the PDC's, 30-year history, Taylor is Taylor, and, you're always going to see him above my head, and I'm never going to discount what Philip Douglas Taylor ever did, but the fields right now are just so immensely talented.
And that's extending down to the youth as well. I keep bringing the JDC back up, and I know we'll hear from Darren, we'll hear from Erin, we'll hear from Dax, we'll hear from Nick, but really, if you look at what they're doing and you look at the standard in the JDC right now, it's going to make it obvious if you just kind of go and take a look at some of the scores these kids are throwing up. It's going to make it obvious why we're having this episode, right? One of the things that I've said, and I don't want to steal anybody's thunder, but you've heard me say it, I've said it in interviews before, is that we worked our tails off to get to the point where our adults are competitive with the PDC players overseas. Certainly, we're beating Luke and Luke? No. But if you're talking about where our players are now compared to where they were in 2015, it's night and day, right? And I'm gonna run our flag up the flagpole and say, we led that charge. But if you look at what's going on in the youth, that gap that we experienced going out of the Mohegan Sun in 2006, right, all the way up to when we started in 2015, New World Dart Series
It's
and all that
kind
in
of
there,
back.
that gap could be back, right? So we need to do everything we possibly can to avoid that, or we're just going to be right back where we started in another 4 or 5 years. And that's why the JDC relationship that we have and the academies that are starting to pop up are so critical to the future success of our game.
Absolutely. So I'm going to ask Jeff McMahon, our producer, to run a little teaser ticker if you've got it ready about the Win More contest. Pete and I are going to talk one more PDC thing, but if you get that ready, throw up there. We'll give you more information in a minute about a great contest we have in association with Win More. One other thing to note today, Pete, and I know you have a real good grasp of this, so you're absolutely the perfect person in North America to discuss this. Big news today coming down that the PDC, will be now hosted actually starting today. And that's how I watch the Premier League finals is on Peacock, So most of the Sky events will be on Peacock for this year. So, like I said, starting today and future events, you can go see the PDC website and social media for the details on that. But Pete, give us a little bit of the skinny on that, and then how, from your perspective, what that means to the game.
Yeah, I was really excited. As you know, we had a meeting about this. I was beginning part of this month, and just after they had signed the deal, and we kind of knew that what was coming down the pipe, and it was kind of tough to keep it under wraps. But now that it's out there, now that the cat's out of the bag, getting new eyeballs on our sport, which you're going to find in a major streaming platform like Peacock, is absolutely a game changer. Now, obviously, we tend to think when we talk about TV contracts and such, we tend to think about the holy grail being over the air, or the big three, or some ESPN, or all those things that we throw out there. But that's not the model of the future. We all know that, right? And so it gives us the ability to, I say us, it gives the PDC, and by extension us, right? We're going to ride those coattails all we can. It gives us the ability to get the sport showcased to people who may not be darts fans yet. There are two types of people in this world. I've said it all the time. There's darts fans, and there's people who will be darts fans. Because once you consume the content, how can you not just love the game that we are lucky enough to be involved in? And people are going to get that. So I was really stoked to see that. Obviously, that leads to more investment here, potentially more. You've seen some teaser stuff about what might be coming down the pipe. I'm not going to go into that here. There's definitely a momentum in North America, and part of that, we just got done talking about Luke Littler. Sure, part of that is the Littler effect. I mean, we've mentioned that ad nauseum, but it's more than that, right? This is organic. This isn't Luke. This is darts now. We've brought it to the forefront. It's now going to have a seat at mainstream conversations, a seat at the dinner table, if you will, in terms of alternative sport.
And two things jump out at me about being on streaming and / Peacock in particular. First, my 13-year-old was, when I showed her the announcement came down, and I right away on my TV, I've got it on there and put it in my, my stuff. And you want it to be recognized. So you want to see that those numbers start to make an impact right away. Right. And, even though my 13-year-old is pretty well versed in the way of darts, obviously based on who her old man is, but she was sort of like, well, kind of who's going to watch that? Not in a derogatory, but a real genuine question. I was like, that's a good question. Like what does being on that Peacock platform mean? Like she had said something like, she's like, oh, well, I go to Peacock because of A, B, and C. And she gave me a couple, 3 shows. And I was like, well, that's exactly why, because you're going to have people, those eyeballs are going to come for X series or movie, and boom, now darts is there. It's those things we see with those algorithms. You watch this, so you might like this, or if you tend to, Peacock has the English Premier League, soccer, football, so it's if you touch on that, you're certainly going to get the darts in your feed. So that's a thing. So it's, you're going to be able to expose it to people who, just like you said, who otherwise may not have come across darts. And then I think the other great thing is that is definitely going to, I believe, is be a good marriage, is the WWE Network is hosted on Peacock. So I think that those fans that are used to because let's be honest, I was actually just talking to somebody about it today. And we're talking about the idea of, darts not, it's a mix, like Barry Hearn always talks about. You've got world-class sport with world-class entertainment, with a world-class party. Like such a unique thing that we're involved in. And I think a WWE audience, as it's pushed in their, what to watch next feed, will be very responsive to this.
Well, look, you go to the you go to the Peacock homepage, right? When you get on your smart TV, you bring up Peacock, and it's sitting right there. Now, granted, again, I'm a fan of the Premier League and Premier League football, right? So, but it's right below the next Chelsea match that's coming up, which is my football team. We've all had conversations. If you promoted this sport at all over the last few years, and I've done it for 26 now, you've had conversations. Mine usually are on airplanes with people, and you're talking about, hey, what do you do? Well, I promote darts. Darts, like that's a thing? Yeah, well, like that's a thing, right? And then you'll bring out the phone and you show them little clips, the World Championship or whatever. They're all like shocked, right? And you hope you've created some fans that way, but that's a microcosm of what's going to happen with this Peacock relationship, right? Somebody's going to be sitting on their couch. They're off for the week, whatever, taking a day off, sitting on their couch or flipping through. It's 3 p.m. on a Thursday, and all of a sudden, hey, what's this darts Premier League? They would probably call it Premier League, but whatever, it's there. So why am I'm not gonna? I'll just give it a try because the what the heck is this value, right? A shock value definitely is going to parlay into, wow, this is really friggin' cool. And I'm now going to set an alert so that every time it's on, I'm going to come back and watch it.
Absolutely. So big news, folks. And so glad we could give you a little recap on today's big news coming out of the PDC, and congratulations to Luke Humphrey. So we are going to start to get underway here in our big sort of two-part show here tonight on youth darts in North America. As I said, the first part is going to be a taped piece that I was fortunate enough to sit down and talk with Darren Barson, the CEO of the JDC, and Erin Quinn, the CDC youth director. Erin couldn't join us tonight because she's en route up to Toronto as we're going to kick off the first weekend. All right. So we're going to go to that video in a minute. And later on this evening, we're going to be joined by Dax Muna and Nick Beach, both part of the Throggs Neck Youth Darts Academy and the JDC USA effort. All right. So before we get to that, I'm going to read the little teaser that's been running, and we've got a video, and then we're going to go straight into the Darren and Erin video. So, do you want to see world-class darts at Madison Square Garden? We have teamed up with Winmar to give away 2 tickets to the PDC North American Darts Championship. That is on Saturday afternoon, June 28th. Enter now at Champ Darts on Instagram. That's how you can find it, @Champ Darts. And the contest will end June 13th. I think we've got a little teaser to run for that, and then we'll go into our JDC video.
We love the darts! Yeah, it's nice to see all those dress ups. It's all about having fun.
Carl, where are you from?
Toronto.
Oh, nice. You came from Toronto because you love the darts.
Yeah, I have. I've never missed this event.
What is it about this event that makes you want to get here to be a part of it?
You got to love darts. It's a great game. And the best of the best are here.
All right, so don't miss out on that contest. Go to Instagram, all right? And you can sign up. Contest ends June 13th, all right? So now let's jump in to my conversation with Darren Barson and Erin Quinn. Take it away. Hello, everybody. Anthony Eugenia, and we're thrilled to have this episode focusing on junior darts, and I am now graciously joined by Darren Barson, the CEO of the JDC, and Erin, Quinn, the CDC Youth Director. Welcome in, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Good afternoon, good morning, wherever we are.
Exactly, very appropriate. We're right now sitting in Texas, New York, and the lovely English countryside. So first, let's start. Is it raining? Is it raining in England right now? That's the question.
You see, if you'd have asked me this a couple of weeks ago, in fact, for the last 10 days, 2 weeks, we've had none at all. But today, yes.
Okay, so things are all back to normal. Okay, so thank you for joining us, both of you. Let's talk a little bit first, Darren, about the JDC, the Junior Darts Corporation. For the uninitiated here in North America, give us a quick overview of how it was founded and what its goals have been.
Well, we're into our 15th year. The Junior Darts Corporation was created as a thought process by Steve Brown, who's the chairman of the JDC, of trying to find a different way for his son at the time and youngsters to explore the sport of darts, perhaps in a slightly different way than he had back in the earlier years of the sort of playing only with adults, playing only in pubs and bars where they had dartboards. So he thought of as something that could we have a kind of group setting like every other clubs that you can have for kids. Before Facebook and all these other things, a couple of posters put on the walls of fish and chip shops and hairdressers and bars and what have you. Steve put a taster night in a separate room away from the pubs, and 30 children turned up. Now, bearing in mind, this is in 2010, so it's some time ago. And the whole premise of what we do now, even this long after, is still exactly the same. And that's to try and give some mentorship and some guidance to youngsters to enjoy the game of darts. What comes out of that, whether you find the greatest players, the greatest referees, the greatest of friends, the greatest contacts and people you look to, maybe even further down the line as you grow up as a youngster. So it's not purely just about the throwing of a dart. It's very much about the community sort of feel.
Talk to us about the academy system and also how things have grown in the 15 years and some of the major accomplishments that have taken place in the decade and a half.
Yeah, well, massive. I suppose the winning factor of all of this is that we've never changed direction. So we've always done the same thing. Academies are accredited and people get involved, volunteers. And we literally do the same thing as we've done for the last 15 years. Not changed course, we've not changed direction. We just simply offer opportunity for volunteers and children to explore the game of darts. But what's happened around that is that it's become more popular. We've grown exponentially in the UK, but now in the last 5 or 6 years, particularly since COVID, we've now seen an uprising in many other nations, and it's a very global thing now. I suppose we were always there, and if Luke Littler had done what he'd done in 2016, we might have had a problem. But the fact that we've got the foundations already across the world now, with the explosion in the last 2 years, we've been able to cope with the demand. But yeah, it's gone from a very small thing in 2010 to a very huge thing in 2025.
We will definitely touch on Luke Littler in just a moment. With no conversation about the JDC and junior darts and the progression of it can be had without his name coming up. But I do want to circle back a little bit. It's very interesting that for you to let listeners and viewers get that sense of that even in Britain, that I think a lot of us always had the assumption that, kids were playing from, as soon as they could walk, they were playing. And I know some of that did happen, playing with mom in the kitchen and things like that. Dad would go out and play at the working man's club. But I think we can relate very much here in the US and Canada in that our players had always more matured when it was going to university or picking the game up much later than it takes to really ingrain it into you as a sort of second nature type thing. So with the academies, I have always liked, I do want people to understand that it's very similar, as you talked about, that it's, that it's not just about sort of some regimented thing where beating the kids with bamboo sticks to make them better, and that this is so regimented that it is a lot about having fun, learning the game, falling in love with it. And through that process, there will be some kids, just like if they played youth baseball and soccer and basketball, here will have good experiences, leave it behind, and they will always remember those experiences. And then there will be other kids who will show that aptitude and take a shine to it, want to move to the next step. So I want people to understand that as well. And another thing I've always been enamored by is that it's very akin to sort of martial arts academies, where you very much encourage growth, acknowledgement of those stages. And I know that might have changed a little bit, but I know you still have sort of a color system. So can you talk about that just for a second? And then we'll
sure,
talk about young Mr. Littler.
It's incredibly important that these gatherings, these groups, these clubs, these academies, whatever you want to call them, do not just have 3 dartboards up on a wall and everybody just throws darts and plays 501 or cricket or something. They are structured sessions where the children must get something out of every session. And one of the things that they can do is have, as you say, like a grading system of ability, that you start with the very basics. Now, that could be before you even can hit the dartboard, to be honest, for some people. And we need to nurture that to be able to begin the game. Then we nurture it to be sort of maybe an intermediate level where you can sort of hit what you're trying to hit. Then there's other levels where you need to hit them under pressure, or you've got to hit a lot of them. So essentially, we're going from hitting the dartboard, understanding the rules, understanding the etiquette, because one thing about this sport, we've got this underlying etiquette in darts that we don't actually print anywhere. So, there's all that to learn, and like any other sport. But the biggest thing of all is to have lots of them. I couldn't care if there was 1,000 academies with 5 children in. You don't have to have 100 children in a darts academy. It's about more of them, and in more communities are exposing that opportunity to the children to play darts. But it has to be structured. There's got to be something to shoot for each week. There needs to be recognition of their ability and the efforts they're putting in. So, for example, we offer other opportunities as well as the grading to qualify for world events and tournaments based on they go every week, they commit. And it's showing about commitment and focus and, the want to be part of a group and get something out of it each week.
Couldn't have set me up any better. So now let's talk about the young man who had that commitment, who had that drive, who had that vision to be the best, and he certainly is. And I'm excited that there may be a lot of new listeners to the show, to darts in general, that have obviously seen the new Luke Littler do what he's done in the last 2 years, but not really have a grasp that, we're talking to a gentleman here who really had a big part in that. Of course, the natural talent was there, right? There was no making a Luke Littler out of nothing, but the sheer talent that he had was crafted and shown brightly through the JDC system. So give everybody a little backstory on how you came to meet Luke, and then Luke's progression into, he's the reigning world champion.
Yeah. Where'd you start? I think what we need to start with is the fact that for those that are not familiar with the sport, there's a lot of traveling, there's a lot of tournaments to enter, and you need committed parents. And that is one of the reasons that Luke is like he is, because his parents took him everywhere. He played in lots and lots of tournaments from a very young age, including obviously the JDC. He, from the age of probably 14, you could see straight away that he was slightly different. He was focused. He would be quite quiet, going about his business. But when he put his foot on that hockey, then it was a different ball game. I mean, we had at one point, probably about 3 years ago, when we had a real crux of 7, 8, 9 really, really good players. And you just saw, and you guys must be familiar with the Roadrunner, and he literally sped through, and it just literally made his way to the top and won everything that we offer, every damn tournament that we could offer. I was fed up of interviewing him. I was fed up of paying him. But at the end of the day, people would just stay and watch and think, God, this guy's really good. And then you start, like he's doing at the moment in the professional game, just taking one, bit to net, breaking one record from another, setting different standards. You needed to start hitting high 90s to beat this guy 4 or 5 years ago, and now in the professional game, you've probably got to get 110 plus to beat this guy, and it just keeps going. But let's not forget that his talent was harnessed by his parents first and foremost. You've got to be supported as a dart player. You're on your own. You haven't got a team. Your team is your parents or the people that look after you.
Sure.
Erin Quinn, for example, she has to look after the guys from North America because they're playing on their own. It's very difficult to sort of put that into context if you're only used to team sport, to be honest.
So that gives us a chance to bring in Miss Erin. So give us your recollection. We know that you've seen Luke play in person, and what was, and you've also had the privilege of heading over to Gibraltar a few times for us, representing the CDC, but also the Canadian youth and the United States youth as they compete in the World Championships and the World Cup. So let's go on Littler for now, and then we'll circle back to our teams in a few minutes.
Like Darren said, he was a quiet kid, stayed to himself, just, played on his phone. And I remember distinctly him being on stage and his mother sitting behind me. And he actually celebrated something, and her and I were very confused. And I was like, wow, that's okay. She was like, well, what do you do? So I took out my phone, brought up Dart Connect, and was like, oh, he just hit a 9 darter. So maybe it could have been a little more. I don't know.
That's just a 9 darter, Mom.
He's amazing to watch. He's such a great kid. And at the time he was a kid. Like, even when he won, still a kid. I got to see him at a Players Championship back in March when I was over in England for my birthday, and he immediately recognized me. Even last year in New York, he got out of his big black SUV that they were carting him around in and saw me and was like, oh my God, you're here. It's like sometimes seeing a familiar face that's not your parents is good to have behind you too.
So I'll put, thank you, Erin. Thank you, Darren. My little take on I would tie those two things together. I was very privileged, sort of the stars aligned, in that I was able to attend the PDC World Championships in London at the end of, I guess, 23 it was now. That week between the quarters and the semis. So I got to see Luke play in person when he took on our own Matt Campbell and then Raymond Van Barneveld, if memory serves, in that week. Yeah, the very first match I ever attended at the Ali Pali was Matt Campbell versus Luke Littler, so it's one I'm never going to forget. But my point being really of what I got to see, privileged about getting to see Luke in the media room, right? So it wasn't just about how he was playing on stage, which was super impressive. It wasn't just also about how he handled the crowd on stage, which was super impressive. He was already interplaying with the crowd at Ali Pali in his first World Championship, which was just sort of mind blowing, right? But then you watched him in the media room being surrounded by every round more and more media members. The Dave Allen was just sort of overwhelmed by as things snowballed those couple of weeks, that the media requests were just off the charts. I've got a great picture of literally people standing on chairs because they were 3 and 4 rows back media wise. And his poise was just fantastic. You would, at the time, right, he was 16 or 7. He was still 16, I believe, right? He just turned 17 after that. He was 16 at the time. So you would by no means, blame a 16-year-old for being completely overwhelmed in that circumstance and give some, yes, no's, and answers. But he was fully eloquent, in-depth answers, and, really fleshed out a thought process. And so I was so impressed by that. And I think Luke even acknowledged it. It was Darren and his team for, like he said, all of those events that he just kept playing with the JDC, and he's winning this and winning that. And, and he was being taught and groomed on how to be a media presence. And it was just so overwhelmingly positive from me that it left an impression that I definitely wanted to, make that a part of this conversation.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Because again, even in our events, it's not just about the dart playing. It's about the way you prepare for an event, how you're going. The media are going to be interested if you're incredibly good. We do interviews with them. We'll stream them. They're used to the cameras, and also the biggest thing of all is all of our major finals. Thanks to the PDC and our relationship with the PDC, is it allows them to play on their big stages. Well, they don't just walk on, play best of 9 legs and walk off again. They are actually handed to the Professional Darts Corporation and are part of their production. So I go, bye guys, and then Dave Allen and Graham Fairhurst will take them on board, and they go through exactly the same thing. And Luke Littler must have played Ali Pali at least twice before he'd done that incredible year. He would have been on stage at the Masters, you name it. So he's quite used to it. But let's not forget, he is just, when it comes to darts, he knows everything. And that makes for a good interview as well, because he's so akin with the sport. It's not just about how good he is with a microphone.
Indeed. He's literally, if you sat and diagrammed what you wanted in a dart player, he's just, it's everything. It's as if he's programmed from the gods to be a professional dart player.
Yeah.
For those, I just want to tie something that Darren had just brought up. For those who are familiar with our process here with the CDC in North America, we host the Evolution Tour Finals, which is our little older. We're talking junior here with Darren, which is 17 and under, but we have 17 and under. We have a next level, which is 16 to 23, akin to what the PDC does. But each year we focus the Evolution Finals at our Continental Cup before the finals, with that same idea that Darren's giving you, that we want them to come in and be handled by Peter Sotero, the tournament director, and get a full, responsibility of being in the practice room with Larry Butler and Leonard Gates and Jeff Smith, and get that whole process about being walked on and coming on stage and the proper etiquette and all that good stuff. All right. So now let's take a turn. Let's get Darren's input a little on what the Littler effect has done to academy attendance, and then also talk about the idea of accreditations and academies here in North America. So we've got an accreditation coming up in New York City, sort of tied to the excitement of the PDC US Masters. All right. So that's going to be in McHale's, hosted at McHale's, June 27th. You'll see it there, 11 a.m. local time. So Darren and then Erin. So Darren, talk to us a little bit about, what the accreditation process is about, what that means about then being able to, found an academy, which is what we want to do here. And then what Littler has done to the excitement about, people starting academies.
Yeah, the whole premise of doing an accreditation day is something that again, from way back in the early days, has never changed. We first of all, we want to meet these people. Secondly, we want to explain all of the bonuses, the opportunities, the fun that is actually all harnessed within a club, an academy. Also, those that may think they know what they want to get themselves in for. We're able to explain the intricate details of, as I said, it's not just throwing a dart. Things like how you welcome, how you coach, how you prepare, how you galvanize these groups of people, where the venue is it appropriate, blah, blah, blah. There's a huge amount of stuff here that I think sometimes those that don't have a huge knowledge of the game of darts just assume that as long as you've got a dartboard up and a light bulb shining on the board, then that's good enough. Well, it isn't. And that's why I think we've changed the thought process of a lot of people around the UK and Europe, is that you need to get in the very beginnings. You need to open those doors to kids that well, my friend plays darts. How do I get involved? And people sort of fall into our world that are hugely talented as well, but also are great advocates for the sport because they go and tell everybody about it. And I think the explosion for us, we were doing really well. We'd planned to come to the US in 2020, but unfortunately, that somebody had a cold, so we couldn't do that. So therefore, we planned again. And having Luke doing what he did at that level is obviously, as you quite rightly say, we are probably 40%, maybe 50% at the time, going from, I don't know, 60 academies to 120. We've got over 200 now, 5,000 children involved when there was only probably about 800, doing this kind of structure across the world, from Gisborne in New Zealand right across to the Bronx in the US. And I literally have maybe half a dozen nations trying to get involved, and I'm just physically struggling to get to them, to be honest. It's crazy out there. But what it does do, it means that the volunteers that get involved have got a whole world of fun, and there's more people interested, the marketing, the products, all this exciting stuff that's happening around a little child walking into their local club to say, I'd like to try darts.
Yeah. Now you touched on it. There is a teaching aspect to this. There is a, you want to convey the love of the sport, but also, be comfortable with teaching youngsters. So it occurred to me as well that, there are some people that have real aptitudes at that and may be involved in other activities. They may have a tennis club, other sorts of things. So I see it, whereas, that might be an opportunity, even though that person may not be completely versed in the sport of darts, but have that natural aptitude and might be interested. So somebody who's listening might know that person and show them this opportunity to say, hey, listen, I know you don't know darts in and out, but this is another great way you already run a tennis academy and a karate academy. Like, this might be another way to open up your portfolio, right? So now let's talk. Last year, you had an accreditation at McCall's, and we came out of that with an academy in the United States, in the Bronx, right? And so Erin is going to give us a little preview into that. Dax Munna and Nick Beach founded the Throggs Neck Dart Academy, I believe, right, Erin? And so that was exciting to come out of that. We're going to speak to them in this episode along with Peter Cetera, so that's good. But Erin, give us your, how you've seen things grow in the Bronx, and really big deal for us to, have a U.S. Academy founded.
I absolutely love going over there. I try to go over every week if I can, if I'm not working overtime, or, I try to get over there quite often. And the kids have come such a long way. One of them couldn't hit a board, and now she's hitting doubles. And they only started last year, but it's fantastic. Sometimes she's hitting the wrong doubles at the wrong times. And I just stand there pushing buttons and scoring for them. And I don't say anything to them. I let Nick work his magic as far as form goes and focus. And I just push buttons. And I'm like, yeah, save that for later. And they just look at me like, you're nuts, lady. But then it's like, but I hit that before. Like, what are you gonna do?
So part of the JDC and CDC journey, because we'll get into that. Well, we have a component in this that, youth players get a chance to come out and play in a tournament setting. We're trying to build on this continent sort of a two-faceted thing. We want the academies, that there is teaching and growth and passion, and then the opportunity to come out and play in organized tournaments. So through both of those venues and avenues, players have the opportunity to compete in the JDC Junior World Championship and be part of their nation and play in the JDC Junior World Cup of Darts. So, Erin, you've gone over there and chaperoned the North American teams. Give us a little taste on, some of the magic that these kids have got a chance to experience in. Of late, it's been in Gibraltar.
Well, since I started back in 2019, it was in Gibraltar. Since I started going, our first team actually went over in 2018 to Bristol. And walking into the event in Gibraltar, I was stunned. Like, I didn't know what to expect. Like, now there's 200 kids. And here's my 8 kids, and they're like, what are we doing here? Like, you're just going to play. You're just relax. You're just going to play. And the amount of friendships that I've seen grow through those kids, it just warms the heart. It really does, because
So
it shows you the other aspect of the game.
Yeah, they walked in feeling like that. How did they walk out at the end of the week?
After not doing as well as they thought they were going to,
That's not our point.
They walked out of there heads high because they represented their country. They, conducted themselves as they should have. And it's the pride that they had in their face just warmed me up.
Truly a moment of a lifetime to get those opportunities to play for your nation, to play for a world championship. These are legitimate world championships, as Darren said. It eventually leads to being on stage at the Alexandra Palace, which is just monumental. And those are things that young players can go with for the rest of their careers, on their resume, that they played for a world championship. So, Jeff, our producer, if
1 year.
Yeah, if you may, Jeff, bring back up the accreditation poster. We just want to, before we take a turn and talk about CDC, I want Darren again to just sort of Darren, how, if we've got people interested, how do they register? What do they expect from the accreditation day? And then also, if you want to add anything about what the academy system does then eventually bring to players about playing in those world championship events.
Yeah, essentially, if you're interested in mentoring in the sport of darts and to give children the opportunity in your locality, which is sorry about that, which is very, very important, because you don't have to be a dart player. And just going back quickly, I wasn't a dart player, and I've ended up in this position. I ran an academy for 10 years, had the whale of a time. It was great. So the main thing is children get local access to the game. It's not expensive. It really takes an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours of your own time a week to plan it. And then you've probably got about an hour or so or two of doing the actual academy. So it's not going to overtake your life. However, it's important that we understand what everybody else is doing around the world and the success they're having through the academy system. Your children can qualify for many, many things. There are national, international, local, world rankings. Children get to really understand where they are within the world of darts, and literally can do it by walking somewhere, hopefully local. They will get to interact with other like-minded children, perhaps, that enjoy the sport. Some that are new and not familiar with the sport. It encompasses everything. The volunteers themselves, if they want to get involved and be part of this huge journey and assisting us in trying to get more and more local activity within the US, particularly, then log on to juniordarts.com, take a little look at starting an academy section. The whole day is going to be in McHale's. We'll start in the morning. We'll do lots of practical stuff. We'll give you all the history. We'll give you all the advice, the hints, the tips, the software, everything you need. And with the backing of Wimmel, we'll even get you the kit. And as the Throggs and Eggs will testify, they've had a lot of kit from Wimmel. So we don't leave you with too much to do, but just to be there for the children, really. And then once we've done that, come and join us at the darts. We've got some tickets with your entry as well. You can come and join us at the US Darts Masters, and let's have some fun and maybe something refreshing.
Absolutely. Yeah. Let's not forget that this is all in the middle of this great PDC US Darts Masters, June 27th to 28th at the theater at Madison Square Garden. So let's wrap things up. Let's take a turn, focus with Miss Quinn here for a second. Jeff, can you bring us up now the CDC Youth Tour poster? So this gives you information on Erin will give us some sort of ins and outs a little bit, opening up May 30th in the Toronto Open. 3 weekends of play that involve players that are 17 and under that fall into the junior category, and the Evolution 16 to 23, trying to give them a chance to compete, earn experience and inspiration again. So Erin, give us a little pitch and a little overview on our CDC Youth Tour for 2025.
I'm very excited for it to start. I can't wait actually to head on up to the Toronto Open. It should be good. They just got off their nationals, so I know they were Jacqueline, who's running the Toronto Open, was definitely pitching us and make sure you come next weekend to the CDC tournaments. They're playing round robin into knockouts, which caters to Canadians because that's all they play up there. Down in the States, it's mainly just straight knockout. But I think they need the experience. They need to throw as many as they can, which is why round robin into knockout really, really works for our youth here.
Okay, and there'll be separate brackets. There will be a junior event, and
then we have the evolution side, which this year is playing the same format as the juniors.
Okay, but they will be. We'll have two separate brackets. You will have a junior event and an evolution event. Correct? Okay. So again, the players are going to play some round robin.
Yes, this year there's two separate brackets.
To gain that, I think Erin's on a little delay, so I'll slow down in my questioning. So you can register for these events at champdarts.com. You'll see a junior page where you can register. 3 weekends coming up this summer, May 30th to June 1st, on site at the Toronto Open. Then we move down to the Carolinas. Weekend 2, July 11th to 13th, in association with the Charlotte Open. Then we finish up with some good friends tournament that has supported us for many years now. Labor Day weekend, August 29th to the 31st, on site at the Washington Area Open. So you've got 3 weekends of play. The players will come compete for good tournaments that day, but along with the with the road of possibly playing overseas. The junior brackets will qualify to send a USA team and a Canadian team to go play in the JDC Junior Darts Corporation World Championship events, and the Evolution group will play for 2 things. One, to play for the Evolution title, which will be on site at the Continental Cup in Philadelphia, but also we will send a United States and a Canadian representative to the Winmore PDC Youth World Championship. So a lot to play for on the CDC Junior and Evolution Tour. So one more chance for you to wrap things up, Erin, in terms from a CDC standpoint. Give us a pitch and a tease.
Pitch, come on out. Get your kids to throw more. I know there's the scary aspect of, I don't know if I can hang with these kids because some other kids. You're never going to know until you try, until you do it. And it's a very welcoming environment with the kids that we have that are coming back. So it's not like you're going to be at a place or they're going to look down on you because you're new. First of all, I don't have patience for that. Like, if they're new, you should be even nicer to them, because you want people to play and you want more kids to come in, and you're going to age out one of these days, and who else is going to play? So be nice to that 13-year-old that's coming up there, because he might be throwing a 9-darter against you in 20 minutes or so.
All right. Thank you, Miss Quinn. So again, you can register for those events at champdarts.com. And so Erin will be packing her bags, hitting the road, and running the CDC Youth Tour. One last thing to turn back to Darren, if you want to give us another closing item, maybe a sort of overview of what you want to accomplish with the JDC in coordination with the CDC academies here in North America.
Quite simply, we need volunteers to start with to get this going. It is going, but as you know, we're alluding here all the time. The more children that can get these sets of darts in their hands, the more opportunity the CDC will get to fill their tours. The more opportunity the local tournaments will get to fill their tour, etc., etc. So realistically, our mission, I suppose, is to come over as many times as we can. And it's not just because it's New York, it's just happens to be that the Masters is there at the moment. You know, I want to talk to people in California. I want to talk to people in Illinois. I want to talk to people in Quebec. I don't care where it is in North America. There's children out there that are going to want this opportunity. So it's the volunteers we need. It's the venues. If you've got a venue and you want to have some traffic through there and sell a lot of soda and some food, you know, let's get a darts academy in there. It's happening all over the world. Everybody is having a little bit of the success, whether it's the bar owners, whether it's the club owners, whether it's the player, the children, the manufacturers, the dart shops, you name it, it's going berserk. And I know from witnessing what I've seen with the CDC's performances with their youth over the years, PJ Stewart, for example, whoever it is, there's talent is there, the mechanism is there, and the right people are there, and that's the CDC. So we need to make sure that we try grassroots. More people start bringing these kids out there, and they've got a wonderful team and a wonderful vehicle to make it a success.
All right. Thank you so much, Darren. Thank you, Erin, for joining me. Thank you for everybody out there. I hope you're enjoying this great episode dedicated to a look at junior darts and youth darts here in North America. All right, we're back live. Thank you to Darren and Erin for sitting with me earlier this week. Fantastic little piece, and appreciate everybody tuning into that. So Pete and I are back. We've got Dax and Nick. We appreciate their patience. They're waiting in the wings. We're going to bring them in a second. But first, we want to give a little tease. As you heard in the piece, of course, the excitement on the horizon here for the PDC US Darts Masters and PDC North American Darts Championship, June 27th and 28th at the Theater at Madison Square Garden. Okay, so I've got a little promo here to read. It says, are you heading to the U.S. Darts Masters and North American Darts Championship? Well, you can stay steps away from the action with a special rate set up by the CDC at the iconic New Yorker Hotel. So you can book that at champdarts.com. All right. Do we have a 30-second little piece to go with that, Jeff? If not, I'll turn it over to Pete for some info.
Unbelievable! That's what I like to see. That's real darts. Pure darts! The greatest darting force on the planet right now. How about that? Oh, magnificent! Sensational darts!
Absolute lunacy this year at MSG. It is going to be completely bananas, Satara. You have any other items related to the hotel, tickets, MSG, all that good stuff that Pete knows behind the scenes to give the fans here before we get to the boys from the Bronx?
Folks, if you're going to MSG, don't wait for discounts. They ain't coming. Okay, you've got the chance to get one for the Saturday afternoon. They ain't coming. Saturday night is going to sell out. I mean, completely sell out. Like no seats available. Like if you're not booked, you're going to be out on the outside looking in, weeping crocodile tears. It is time to book the seats. Okay, Friday night, still some good seats available. Saturday afternoon, that's our guys. That's the North American Championship. Folks, don't skip that. There's some fantastic darts there. Get your tickets for that. And then Saturday evening, Saturday afternoon is our guys. Saturday evening, that's, of course, the finals of the Darts Masters. Every seat in their theater is going to be with a button. It's going to have a button in it. So don't sit around and wait. Book now. And that hotel, folks, you got $229 a night for a queen room. You got $249 a night for a double room. Queen suite for $349. Family suite for $379. This is in the heart of friggin' Manhattan, literally right across the street from MSG. If you try to stay in Manhattan any place else, you're paying $100 more. All right? This rate doesn't exist anywhere. It's a good hotel. Take advantage of it. champdarts.info/PDC Hotel 25. Again, champdarts.info/PDC Hotel 25.
Boom. You heard it from the man. So we'll see y'all in a Big Apple. Now, speaking of two boys that are already in the Big Apple, they're just going to take a train ride down to MSG. So let's bring them in now. The director of the JDC USA effort is one Dax Mona. Let's welcome in Dax. All right. Hey, Dax, thanks for joining us. And the director of the Throggs Neck Youth Darts Academy, Mr. Nick Beach. We got Nick on the line. All right.
How's it going, guys?
Nick, doing pretty good. Let's slot you in there, and there you go. Jeff pulls off the 4 shot. Outstanding. Yeah, I did prep you guys with a few. First off, thank you very much for your patience. We've got a jam-packed show tonight. I really enjoyed that segment with Darren and Erin. Thank you for sitting through it. I gave you guys a couple of questions, a couple of directions that will go in this conversation. And Pete, you give us your take on everything as we weave through the story of, youth darts here in the U.S. and in North America. But I'll go to Dax and then Nick first. Dax first and then Nick. Anything in that piece that you want to highlight that you don't think didn't cover in my questions for you? Anything with Darren and Erin? Or your impressions of that combo?
I thought that was a beautiful intro. Obviously, Darren's been doing this for a while. My relationship with him started going back to before lockdown when they had been planning on coming here. My communication started with him, then started back up again after lockdown to say, what are you guys looking to do here? Are you offering your accreditation online? And we just really started having a great back and forth about there is potential here to do more. Obviously, the Littler effect had a huge impact on what's going on in the world of darts. And after a few conversations, they said, yeah, we're coming to the U.S. Masters. Let's do this. This is a great idea.
Nick, your impressions of that earlier conversation?
Yeah, I think Darren laid it out pretty well. There was a lot that I had questions about going into this, and they covered a lot of it. It was still overwhelming once we got started with the kids, but they covered it pretty well. And anybody that's interested in going to it, they're going to learn a lot from Darren and the way that they do things. And Dax and I are going to be there too. So if anybody has any other questions, we'll be happy to answer and hopefully guide them
we'll dive into the accreditation day. We'll definitely get your recollections of last year and what people to expect. But first, of course, we want to find out a little bit about both you guys and Nick. To stay with you, what has drawn you to the youth game? What has made you, what sparked your interest in setting off on this endeavor?
It's actually something that I thought about long before I knew that there was a JDC. I have notes on my desk here of ideas of how I wanted to do it for a while. As you may know, Anthony, I'm also help run the Throggs Neck Dart League, which is the adult league here in our area. And Paul Porter and I had talked about trying to get it off the ground, and I really just didn't know how to do it. Mm-hmm. So when I saw this thing pop up, it was a great way for me to kind of pick up all the loose ends that I wasn't really sure how to tie in and get going. But really, it was just a matter of community, a matter of wanting to give back a little bit. Me and my friends that I play with, we all have a lot of young kids that know that we play in the bars and in the league locally. And something for them to want to do with our kids. My daughter plays, so that's a big reason why.
That's wonderful. That's a wonderful way to frame that, and that to me is should be very inspiring to people around the country that may have had these thoughts like, here's a real well-structured system that will support you through this, and we'll get more info from you guys on what that journey's been like. So now to turn to Dax, just same sort of question. What has been the inspiration? I know you obviously as a top flight player on the East Coast and former New York City Premier League champion. So what was the inspiration to then now turn your focus to the youth game?
You know, a lot of it goes back to those days when you and I were having those conversations at the precipice of you starting DPNY and that whole series, when we really started talking about long format and how we needed to really optimize American darts. Too much was going into short format. And while it was fun and engaging and had been the way of it for so long, those conversations were really seminal in thinking about how do we improve American darts? How do we make it better? How do we compete overseas? And we had some great conversations on that because that was shortly after I had gotten back from my time in Rhode Island. We really exploded the PDSL set play format, long format in New York, and it grew from there. And I've always been about wanting it to improve, wanting it to get better. And, you know, for as much as we all love the game, for as much as the best players love in the game, we all need to maximize the time in our lives that we put into it. We all also have to recognize the time, you know, we have to have for our families and our lives and our jobs and stuff. So it was really about saying this is the next step really in getting to kind of backfilling the American talent pool. How are we going to grow the game? And this was the next avenue.
Yeah, and that certainly sets up a great turn to Peter, as he set up earlier in our conversation to open the show up, that's another real vital piece of what we need to accomplish here on this continent, right, Pete? So, you know, give you your chance to, you know, convey your passion for the youth game.
Yeah, you know, look, when we started the youth initiative in the CDC, and I'll come right out and say it, I thought we didn't have the bandwidth. I was not in support of us doing it originally. Not that I didn't want to.
Quite honestly, let's be honest, you were probably right. but we did it anyway, because this is.
But we did it anyway. And credit to you, Ant, for kind of trying to drive that. We did it anyway because it was the right thing to do.
Yeah, without a doubt, and that's your leadership.
The point of this is that we need to get our younger generation beating each other up on the board consistently. We need to get them playing more darts more often, at the risk of sounding like David Maher from Dart Connect. More darts more often. And we want them to use that opportunity to then, you know, catapult their game. And the JDC Academy flows so well into CDC because just like anything else, like look at this in terms of youth sport. My kid plays baseball, right? My kid is never going to be an MLB player. But he started as a little 8U, whatever, they didn't know what a baseball bat was, and he fell in love with the game, and he wanted to take it to the next level. Just like anything else, there's always going to be people that want to take it to the next level, and there are going to be people that say, you know what, I don't, and that's fine. But the academy system introduces people to that. It gives them a structured place to learn the sport that we all love, and then when they get to that point, they're ready to make the jump to the JDC, the CDC Youth Junior Tour, the Evolution Tour, and eventually all the way up to the CDC Main Tour. And there's no better proof of that than Stowe A. Bunce, who you would know as Stowe Bunce Jr., right? Kid got his CDC Tour card, played the CDC, came out to his credit, got on the Aki. That is exactly the path that we're trying to build here. It starts at your local league, moves into the JDC, moves into the CDC, moves in, with the CDC Junior Evolution, all the way CDC, then PDC.
So, boys, let's turn the page back just a little bit to a year ago to fill us in on the lead up to last year's accreditation day that was also held at McHale's. What was when was the decision making that you guys were like, this is not now just going to be a conversation or a discussion point of we'd like to. When did it turn to we are going to? And then, what was that accreditation day like for you?
You want to start, Dax?
Sure. So it was, Nick and I, also friends and teammates for many years, we were having conversations about really how to approach this. I think we both went in as Anthony, as you mentioned in your interview with Darren, there's this thought, this American mindset that the structure over there for youth darts must be rigid and they're cranking out these monster players at such, and that's what I thought as well.
Yeah.
And then in having the conversations, it was very much about just introducing the game of darts to kids. And the mantra we've come up with trying to spread the gospel here in America is darts in hands and smiles on faces. The challenge, in the same way that the distribution now with Peacock and the PDC is going to bring it to new people. The challenge for us as Americans is to bring it to new youth as well. The Stowe Bunce and Stowe Bunce Jr. Example is wonderful. That is the large data set of a lot of our youth that compete right now. It's sons and daughters of kids who have been traveling with their parents for a while or have been around. We want to get more kids involved in the way kids get involved with Little League Baseball or Little League Soccer. In the big picture, we wouldn't be able to compete in those sports if kids picked up a baseball mitt and ball, at 16 years old, 17 years old.
Absolutely.
We start them young and we generate interest. Some people stay with it and some people don't. But if we can generate the interest at the young age and generate the fun and the community, the resilience building, the math that's involved, it's such a great way to engage kids. Nick and I had these conversations, and Nick was in a really perfect sweet spot to really kickstart it off first. And he's been the forerunner in everything Throggs Neck Youth Academy. I'll let him talk about his experience and how he jumped it off from there.
Yeah, please, Nick. So, turn back to last year, the thought of let's make this a reality. Let's sign up for an accreditation day. And then, what sort of things did you come out of that? And then, you can both then lead us down the road of, what it has been like to work with the JDC over the last year, what the support that you have, and to, give people the inspiration out there to take this leap.
Yeah, so one of the things that Dax is alluding to that we had a head start on here in Throggs Neck is the community. We have a lot of local clubs. We have a lot of local beach clubs. We have access to these places, places like the Redwood Club and the DA Beach Club. They allow us to go in and not just with the kids, but with the adults. They allow us to have events there free of charge. We do our award ceremonies there. We do all types of stuff. And so the DA Beach Club was more than open to letting us host it there. They have darts there Wednesdays at night for the adults. And so it was a natural fit for us to just slide in a little bit earlier, get some of the adults that are going to come play, come out a little bit earlier, give us a hand, and go into it. And so to have that space is was the big key to it. Without the space, not sure what we would do.
Absolutely. I just occurred to me, for our listeners, just clarify where in New York Throggs Neck is, just so it gives them some perspective.
So it's in the Northeast Bronx. It's kind of hard to get to with public transportation. There's no trains that go to that area. It's kind of at the end of the Bronx, and
we just want with podcast listeners and viewers to have an idea of who.
Yeah, so it's on the Long Island Sound.
So he's up in the Bronx, everybody. So part of northern New York.
It's a nice little waterside community. I grew up on that water. I lived in the building right next door, and these people welcomed us with open arms.
So you get there at the accreditation day, and what was the experience like? Having Darren sort of run that day. What was it like to what things were a surprise to you, and what were some of the things that you recall that you really you learned that day?
So how simple it was. Like Dax mentioned, we both kind of went into it thinking they're studying math all day, they're working on their outs, they're drilling all the kids all day. And we realized it's not like that. It's just a lot of fun. We go through the JDC challenge every week to kind of measure them and advance them and handicap them when they're playing each other. But really it's not as difficult as we thought it was. And yeah, it's a lot of work, but it's anyone can do it as long as you want to kind of teach these kids and get them involved. Anyone that has a passion for darts like we do can do it as well.
So what? Give us some info. Behind the scenes. What is it? Not just like to work with the JDC, but what sort of practical things, like Darren in his piece talked about, I think some equipment support and other online. So so what is it week to week, month to month by being an official JDC academy?
So when you so for us, we are sponsored by Winmore, and they've supplied a bunch of darts cases, repointing tools, dartboards, surrounds, and we give that all to the kids, and we make it so that if they want their own equipment, they're welcome to go get it, but we have everything that they need. So if a kid comes in, there's plenty of darts, there's dartboards, there's cases, there's anything that they want, all supplied by the JDC. So they really do a good job in making sure that it's as cheap, if not free, for these kids as possible.
Fantastic. So, Pete, of course, as I said earlier, please feel free to, any of these topics as we weave through this story, anything that you want to add to it, please come in. I don't need to call on you. You've got free reign of everything, but anything in what we've talked about in the last minute or two that you'd like to embellish on.
Just briefly, I want to talk about Winmore and the equipment. Specifically, I want to get your take on the green zone board.
Wow.
If you don't know what that is, explain what that is for the people as well.
So the green zone board is a way.
Good question, Pete.
Yeah, so the green zone board is kind of like the equalizer in skill for the kids. So traditionally, you got to double out in a game of 501. For the kids, based on their skill level, they might have to just hit the green zone. So the green zone is basically just an oversized bullseye, and when they get to 0 or break 0, they're allowed to bust 0. Then they're on the green zone. And so they have to hit this big green center. And when they do that, they win the game. And so it allows the kids to get a sense of accomplishment without struggling to hit the doubles like we all do.
So Dax, let's get your perspective from, working with the JDC to not only support Throggs Neck, but then continue the effort to go out and enlist further academies.
Sure. So I came in just as eager as Nick did to kind of further a lot of the coaching and teaching I do, and then to see really the way they do it in the UK. If that's where it all started, let's see how the motherland is doing it. It was really enlightening and relieving to know that they were really just looking to spread the love of the game. It wasn't about anything super staunch. It was about literally getting darts in hands. They recognized too, Darren and I had great conversations afterwards saying, there's a lot of these kids who simply have never touched a dart. We had Michael Smith come to my daughter's school and do a little exhibition with 4th and 5th graders. Darren set up all the boards, and the really telling thing was there was only one kid in the room who knew a world champion was in their midst, and that was my daughter, because we watch it all the time. but all the other guys and girls, the little kids, they were, all right, there's a guy in a funny shirt and he talks funny. But it was a wonderful day. They got to try something new, and just like the mantra says, like, everyone somewhere along the way has thrown a dart at a board and smiled, even if they weren't very good at it. And the kids were no different. So we really are looking. My desire to open my own academy is taking me down a very unique path in Manhattan with Manhattan real estate. But I've had some, I don't want to let the cat out of the bag too much, but I've had some conversations with Peter, and there's some really good stuff on the horizons for Manhattan. But right now, with this push for the accreditation, we really just want to get into other communities. We want other passionate parents and players and educators to say, you know what, this is a great activity for kids to get involved in. And for all of the very understandable apprehensions that people always talk about, oh, the sharp darts, or you know what, it is. There's the green zone. To give people more perspective on the green zone, the handicap system would have been something that before getting involved, I would have said, you know what, I don't get it. It's not teaching the game. But it's the same concept, and Americans have to realize this as, as T-ball. We want to make it easier for the kids to enjoy it. We just want to expose them to the game. So it's not about them needing to know their setups and outs right away. It's literally about letting them throw at the board and have some fun. And then little by little, you start to hone all the other skills and all the other math computations, and you let the kids have fun, and before you know it, they're engaged and they want to do it more.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I gotta say, Dax, the day that we had last year at the school was memorable. All credit to Michael Smith. He was wonderful with the kids. You guys were one. I wish that we could replicate that elsewhere. And, the fact that the school, obviously you have ties with them, but they were so willing. You mentioned math, and that really is the linchpin to break into the educational system. It's not darts, quad darts, right? It's darts because it's a path to learn the skills that a lot of kids don't necessarily learn these days, right? I mean, we live in an era of calculators and tablets, and it brings math to a relatable topic, and that I think is the absolute springboard to growth just across the country.
The unique part about the math is, and for the kids that Nick works with in Throggs Neck, and for the kids where this math is age appropriate, you realize so much of work we do in school or work we do in our jobs, if we gamify it, we tend to enjoy it more. We tend to engage more. And for kids, it's certainly no different. So when you gamify math and literally put a board in front of them and they start working, or if you were to put a worksheet of dart-related math in front of them, they'd think it was pretty cool. The math application gets really interesting because we're no longer, it's no longer a rote multiplication table like we all did growing up. It's dart math, how we like to talk it. So it really engages them in a different way.
So Nick, talk to us a little bit about, what the last year has been like, and, any stories or anecdotes about, progress and some of your students, and, tell us a little bit about, your academy.
Yeah, so for those that don't know, the JDC runs 6 8-week seasons a year, and you got to run concurrent with them. So we started up in September of 2024, and we're now currently halfway through our 4th season, the 3rd season of 2025. Along the way, we've had a good amount of kids. We started with 16, we had 17. We have 11 now, which is kind of a sweet spot for being able to keep them all engaged, not pull our hair out, and deal with the little hour plus session with all of them. We've seen the kids grow a lot. A lot of them, when we started, were all what the JDC would call white. A white shirt, right? So barely hitting much of anything. But we had a kid join this season that is going to be yellow. He was the first guy to get into the green, which is over 450 points on the JDC challenge. So we're seeing some growth out of him. We had a kid advance to the yellow last season, which is our first. So they're really growing. It's been great.
And that inspires the other kids in the academies. And, and I thought of something that Dax was talking about earlier is, you want these kids to, just like other activities and clubs, be speaking about how much fun they're having, how much they're enjoying it at school, just at school. Like, hey, on a, whatever night it is, I attend, this dart academy and I'm having a really great time, and be evangelists for it on their own. I mean, that's the greatest promotion you can have, right? Is peer, peer-to-peer word of mouth.
Yeah, because I mean, the thing is here, dart players aren't celebrities to these kids, right? They play because I play.
Mm-hmm.
My daughter plays because I play. My partner over there, another guy named Nick, his son plays because he plays, and his daughter plays because he plays. They don't know who Luke Littler is, and so to get them in there and to get them to play and to get them to tell their friends, word of mouth is going to be everything. But like we spoke about earlier, the NBC and Peacock, that's going to be a big deal, because now if they see this young 17, 18-year-old kid up there making all this money and being a celebrity, maybe it's going to spark the interest in these younger guys to get in there.
So let's take a turn towards home and start wrapping this up. And a big push and promotion now for the accreditation day. But so I'll get back to the boys in a minute. But now sort of turn it over to Pete to we'll get the graphic up in a second on the accreditation day. But Pete, now from your perspective, you touched on it, but I'll give you another chance to give us an overview of the real effort that we want to see happen in the U.S. and Canada. Academies sending students and players overseas to compete, eventually getting to us on the championship dart circuit. That whole complete picture that I know you have such a good grasp on.
Sure. We've worked really hard over the past 10 years. I guess to be fair, the youth has been more like 8, but we worked really hard to put in place a pathway to greatness, right? Just like we have it for the adults, right? The adults, as an adult, you start at your local league, you move into a singles league, you go to DP tours, you go to CDC, you go to the PDC. That's the adult path. Mm-hmm. The junior path, or we'll say the youth path, because again, it's not just the JDC age. We have the Evolution Tour as well. We have 16 to 23, and we send players to the PDC Winmore World Youth Championship. Really, it is, you get involved. Right? What we're lacking right now is the where do you get involved? And Dax and Nick touched on it, right? Their kids play because they play. Yes, Peacock will help, but we got to have a place that's a safe place for children to be able to access our game in a way that's friendly, in a way that connects with them and the way they look at the world. And it's separate from the culture that darts is here in the United States. And that's not a drawback. I mean, darts has been a pub game forever, but it doesn't work when you're dealing with the kids. You can't have that tie into pub culture. No parent outside of darts parents are like, oh yeah, I'm going to send my kid to the pub, right? This isn't the UK. It doesn't work that way. And so if you can establish this safe place and get the kids in and have them work with people who are just as passionate about this as Nick and Dax and you and I am, that is the key. That is the success to getting them on the train. And then from there, again, it's not going to be 100% of the kids that want to go to the next step. And that's fine. Anybody who has fun with the game will their first experience with darts is going to be fun and engaging. And yeah, maybe they're not going to move on to the next level, but you know what? They're going to be darts fans, and we need those too, right?
That's exactly where I was going to. Yeah, I was going to go with you right there, Pete. Exactly. It turns people onto the game, and those people, could be ticket buyers. They learn to love the game and love the overall, get turned on to the whole universe that is this crazy dart thing that we love.
And how cool would it be? Right now it's the parents getting the kids into darts. How cool would it be if we get to the point where the kids are getting parents into darts? Hey, Mom, Dad, turn on Peacock. Look, there's this darts thing on. Really? What? It's almost like, okay, I'm going to go a little weird and geeky here, but it's almost like, Yeah, if you're a Harry Potter fan, right? Hermione Granger introduces her parents, because she's the witch. She introduces her parents to the world of magic. Like, it's opposite of what normally happened in that world. Same thing can happen here. You can skewer me for the analogy, but at the end of the day, I'm really passionate about this. I know the two gentlemen that have joined us today are also.
Oh, fantastic. So Jeff, if you might give us that accreditation poster again. I know we've put it up a lot, but let's get it up again if you've got it. All right. So now you can go register at juniordarts.com. Okay. We heard Darren talk about that. So one last thing from both Nick and Dax on what people should expect. We'll go to Nick first and then Dax on, if they're coming to the accreditation day, what type of a day to expect?
So first off, I'd say it's going to be a fun day. Darren does a great job of keeping everybody engaged. He had us run through that JDC challenge, and we all did terribly at it. It's harder than it looks, especially on the spot. But we had a good time. We learned a lot, and if anybody has any hesitations, it's not necessary. You will enjoy it. You'll learn a lot, and I think that and you'll also have support after the fact from Dax, myself, and anybody else that is involved that can offer a helping hand.
Dax, what should people expect?
An absolute agreed. An absolute fun day, much easier than anyone would think. If you've been interested, if you've been one of those people in your locale saying, if only there was more opportunity, or I wish there was this is your chance to make the opportunity. This is your chance to grow the game in your locale. This is the chance, we know names like Stoke-on-Trent because of great players came from Stoke-on-Trent. Americans would have no other reason to know that town name. Why not?
And Dax, one of the things that I want to bring up too is that this is, Throggs Neck Dart League is just like any other neighborhood dart league around the city, and this is a perfect situation for leagues just like that. All of these community-based local leagues have places like the DA Beach Club in the Redwood that can accommodate kids in a safe environment. Yes. And all it takes is somebody like me to organize it, and it doesn't take that much time. It really, like Darren mentioned in the earlier segment with Erin, it's a couple hours a week, and that's really it. And if you want to do more, you can, but you don't need to. So for all those people that run leagues like Throggs Neck Dart League out there, there's no excuse. You want to see the kids grow, come on out and go to the accreditation day, and you can have the same thing going for your area.
Pete, any last word on the accreditation day specific, McHale's, JDC, PDC, that sort of thing? Of we covered everything pretty much.
I think we hit it. It is a great day. Having had the good fortune to be able to go through an accreditation a few years ago with Darren, I know it's a great time. You'll learn the system, you'll learn the JDC routine, you'll learn GoDarts Pro. It really is a great, even if you're just on the fence, like, hey, I think I might want to maybe explore what this is about. Spend the money, you get 2 tickets to MSG. So even if it isn't your cup of tea, even if you decide it isn't right for you, it's well worth it to meet other like-minded people and get a chance to get into the biggest darts event in North America.
Indeed, I thought about that. You and Erin got accredited a few years ago, and it was when we were looking at that green board, the green zone, and it really was a sort of thing that it wasn't overly difficult to understand, but once the whole system was laid out in front of me, I became a big fan. So it does, all the pieces do come together quickly, and it's not hard to become very, very inspired by the leadership of Darren and the JDC. So before we let the boys go, give you both a chance to plug some things, and then Pete and I are going to stick around and close the show out. So, Nick, any last words, anything to promote or thank or anything like that?
Nope. If anybody has any questions about youth darts in the States, I'd be happy to help. If anybody in the area, in the New York City area, wants their kid to come on over and give it a try,
how would they get in touch with you?
We have the Throggs Neck Youth Darts Academy page on Facebook. That's probably the best place, the most accessible. Yeah, find us on there, and I'm happy to help.
Fantastic. Mr. Munna.
Yeah, I've written articles for A to Z darts.com on youth darts. I've written for the JDC on Darts Asylum about youth darts. Please reach out to me on Facebook, Dax Munna. I'm happy to answer any of your questions. I'll be at the accreditation myself. This is a real great opportunity.
So fantastic. All right. So we're going to let Nick and Dax go. I want to thank you both very much for joining us tonight. Appreciate the conversation. It was absolutely wonderful. And we will see you both at the accreditation day, see you at the Garden, and hopefully we'll get a chance to bring you boys back on down the road and see where things have developed with the sport. So thank you, boys.
Thanks, Sam. See you later, Peter.
Take care, guys. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
All right. So before we have a little, go ahead, Pete.
We're talking about youth, and I mentioned Stowe A Bunts, and I got a little text from a little birdie who reminded me that I should have and didn't mention Joey Lenoir, right? I mean, there's he's not a kid anymore, but very successful dart player. One of our tour card holders came up. I mean, he was playing the youth
how
stuff.
we started this show with the Luke Humphrey sort of idea. Joey came out unsure of where. I always chuckle about the conversations with his dad of trying to find out where he was going to land. Comes out junior. He's already plays in the World Cup or JDC World Championships. Played Evolution. Played in the Winmar World, as you said, and now he's competing in our biggest events on the circuit. So a player that exactly has sort of nailed things at each and every stage of development.
And we know it exists here, right? Joey's an example. Heck, PJ Stewart was one dart away from a berth at Ali Pally in the final, right? The JDC final. I mean, kid decided he wanted to go to college and become a pilot. So, I don't know if I can condone that whole thing outside of darts. But
fast planes and hot girls. I mean, I completely blame them. Darts should have taken priority, right?
Beats the heck out of hanging out with guys like you and me. But, Caden Anderson, it can be done. We know we have
Gavin
the talent.
Nickel, Jacob Womack.
Yes.
We've got Kiefer Durham. We've got a little roster here. Absolutely.
And it's our goal now to find the next group, the next PJ, the next Caden, the next Kiefer. That's what we have to do.
Absolutely. I want to tease the two things that we had at breaks earlier. So again, if you want to win some tickets to the North American Darts Championship session on Saturday, our sponsors Winmar are putting some two great tickets up on that. You can go to our Instagram page at Champ Darts. And the contest ends June 13th. Pete, information is there, correct, on how to enter the competition on our Instagram, right? Okay, so
that is correct.
That. Our second promo, of course, was that the same weekend in New York City. If you need a hotel room, we have a great rate at the New Yorker Hotel, and you can get there through champdarts.com as well. Correct, Mr. Cetera?
Yep, champdarts.com, you can find it, or champdarts.info/PDC Hotel 25.
Excellent. So, we have a big weekend coming up before then, June 6th to the 8th. We're in Cambridge, Ontario, so keep an eye out for that for our social media as we bring you the second weekend on the 2025 Road to the Continental Cup. And then, again, we're all going to go to New York City and party it up, Mr. Cetera.
Get your eyes on the 5 streams we're bringing you, right? I mean, that's a big win that we had in Niagara Falls. Really blessed to be able to now do something nobody else in North America has ever done, which is bring 5 streamed boards, be on PDC TV. Certainly I'm excited about it. It's going to be a great springboard too. I can't believe we're already back to June, and it's MSG again, and I got meetings and all this crap that we got to do to prep. Actually, I shouldn't say it's crap. I'm blessed to do it, but it's all the planning and all the execution. But it's going to be here before you know it. Then it's going to be now it's another year.
Yep. We always talk. It's halfway, coming halfway through the season. It's just crazy. Things move at a big clip. So we're going to continue to have some fun with our great contributors this year on Shooting the Bull. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is time to find out what's in Pete's glass.
What's in Pete's glass? Where has he been? What's in Pete's glass?
Peter Cetera, Special Reserve. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it.
Every time I watch that picture's got to go. So
what's on store tonight?
So I was thinking, because, obviously I've been on Facebook a while. Facebook now is intended for people my age. I've become the old dude, right? But I was thinking, because it popped up in my memories the other day, we were talking about it in our chat group, that we feels like just a few short years ago, just back in 2017, we had a wonderful CDC weekend in Kentucky. And there's a lot of great memories that came out of that. And of course, I am a bourbon guy. I mean, I'm a whiskey guy in general. I just love whiskey. So I'm more of a Scotch guy than a bourbon, but I'm starting to be more with bourbon. So I was blessed just a couple of weeks ago to be able to get my hands on a bottle of old Rip Van Winkle. This is the 10-year. It's not the family reserve, but certainly it is, I think, one of the best bottles out there. There's value here. I'm not quite sure there's value in the actual Pappy family reserve. That's however many bazillions arms and legs that it costs. But this, man, if you like bourbon and you can get your hands on a bottle of this, it is absolutely worth it. That's it to my glass. Remembering the Waffle House picture.
Take note, kids. If you want a good value on a bottle of hooch, Cetera tells you Rip Van Winkle.
I mean, we got away from the youth part, right? Come on. Come on. Daddy, what does 107 proof mean? Don't worry about that, kid.
Oh.
You'll figure it out eventually.
Ladies and gentlemen, if we don't laugh, we're absolutely going to crack up. So, chin down, Peter Cetera. Drink up, enjoy. Thank you. You always put such a big smile on my face. I appreciate you joining me tonight. Thank you to Dax Mona, Nick Beach, Darren Barson, Erin Quinn for participating in tonight's episode. It's like a big double, comic book big episode that we've got here. So our production team will have some work to do to chop it up to get it out on social media. I want to thank Jeff McMahon, as always, for doing a real kick-ass job on getting the show together and getting things lined up. Thanks to KJ, Vicky, Irene, people that contribute on getting these shows to you. We have a real blast. Stay tuned. There's going to be some information. Our next show is planned to be live from the Big Apple that weekend of the U.S. Masters. We are planning a big crossover episode, so a special episode like in the old days on NBC, a big crossover, can't miss episode between Shooting the Bull and the Live Lounge with Phil Bars of Online Darts. So keep an eye out for that. Myself and Phil gonna have a show live from the Big Apple with some great guests and great conversation. All right, so that will be your next Shooting the Bull.
You got me on the guest list for that one, Eugenia?
You are. You bet your bottom dollar. Let's see. Peter Cetera is always on the guest list. He's in ink, folks. He always gets a pass into the party. And I hope you've enjoyed sharing the evening with us. If you watch this post, I hope you enjoy it. Again, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, X, TikTok, YouTube. You can find it at Champ Darts. Our website is champdarts.com. And on the podcast platforms, please subscribe and give us a good review. For that, please, reminder to be kind to your fellow human beings. And I will see you next month for the next episode of Shooting the Bull. Take care, everybody.
Thanks for joining us for Shootin' the Bull, the official podcast of the Championship Darts Circuit. Subscribe to the show so you don't miss an episode, and follow us at Champ Darts on social media to keep up with all of the latest news on North American darts.